Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We'll be talking about personalization for our association and our nonprofit community. We're all in Cvent webinar right now, our webinar platform, and you can join us in the chat on the right side of your screen, submit questions in the Q&A, and download this slide deck and all of our other docs under resources. My name is Jessie Hines-Wolf, and I'm a principal account manager here at Cvent. I've been here for almost 6 years now after starting my own career in development at an international nonprofit. I was a Cvent customer when I was a planner, and today I work exclusively with our nonprofit and association partners, improving their events programs, reducing that manual effort, and furthering organizational missions.
Hello, everyone. My name is Will Lowe, and I am a lead customer success advisor here at Cvent, meaning I work to understand customers' specific business and event goals to ensure they're leveraging our platform in the most effective way for their needs. I've been at Cvent for about 4 years, prior to which I worked for an association management company on toxicology research events. And I can't tell you much about toxicology, but I have plenty of experience in association events and now work primarily with our association customers. And as Jessie was saying, thank you for joining us today. We'd love to know who you are. So please go ahead and share who you are and what organization you're with in the chat.
I think for now we'll get into that agenda.
Perfect. So a brief overview of today's webinar. We're going to jump into why personalization matters for associations and nonprofit event planners and marketers. We'll go through the different stages of personalization to give you some context on what has evolved, what's new, and where your organization is operating at. We'll discuss common challenges that we see preventing organizations from being able to personalize effectively. And then we'll jump into some next steps, suggestions on what next action you should take at your own organization. And we will leave some time for Q&A at the end. We'll share some resources and opportunities for you to further connect with us and connect with Cvent moving forward.
Hi, Rachel. Hi, Melissa. Looks like we have Lacey and Landon here.
We're getting a lot of representation from all over the place too. International. Hello from London. Very nice.
Love that.
All right. So when we talk about a personalized attendee experience, where should we start? It's pretty easy to already assume that when someone joins an association as a member or subscribes to a nonprofit's newsletter, they're interested in the news, content, and events being hosted by this group. But that's still pretty broad. Often, your association and nonprofit touch a wide range of areas and interests. And as someone responsible for events and marketing, you are aware that you don't want to send each person in your database everything happening within your organization. That's just information overload. So just like this webinar, we can assume you're interested in understanding more about personalization, but it's certainly more nuanced than just the topic itself.
That's right, Will. Members and donors are looking to experience connection between each other, with the organization, with the parts of your mission that are most relevant to them. So you need to understand what are the right segments to begin grouping interests and offerings by. This could be segments determined by demographic information, such as age or background, or segments grouped together by commonalities, such as stage of career or level of financial commitment. Maybe even segments identified by common interests or qualifying behaviors, such as least or most engaged. It's likely that most of you here have some knowledge of what these segments are, but maybe the challenge lies in knowing with certainty that yesterday's segments are still optimal for today, and then how do we execute on that information? This takes a foundational investment in customer data and analytics. So during this webinar, we'll break each stage down of personalization, its challenges, and we'll help you turn all of these insights into action. And since this is live, we're going to be engaging with you in the chat. I see Nicole is here. And we'll be getting to know a little bit more through some live polls to understand these segments and how these are applicable to you and your organizations.
We need to consider that we now have this precedent with the Netflixes and Spotifys of the world who have set a new consumer expectation to offer highly personalized experiences. We have recommended content or even generating new content compilations based on behaviors that users have taken. Sure, when you sign up for a service like one of these, you might give it a few inputs on what you like to start, but then the service begins tracking your behaviors, what you watch and consume, and is able to make more educated offerings based on recent data that's accumulated over time. So this is where we're seeing machine learning automation and AI tools providing the capabilities needed to cleanse and streamline data, connect a single person's touch points across platforms, and enable real-time campaign execution. And while this isn't a perfect metaphor, we'll be approaching our hyper-personalization in this webinar through our Q&A section at the end, where you can submit your individual questions for answer. And we encourage you to submit those throughout the webinar.
And I think most of you know by joining this conversation that personalization is worth it because of all the benefits, right? This is a win-win for improved constituent experience and powering your organizational goals. Especially when it comes to your donor or member experience, it can help in setting preferences, allowing you to get relevant information and not spending your time and spinning your wheels, receiving and then interpreting irrelevant information. Not having to input that same information over and over again in your various systems. We know the key here is always to eliminate some more manual effort. Personalization enhances the feeling also of being known and connected to your organization through specialized recognition. It also strengthens a meaningful connection to your organization and your mission, leaving a positive impact on your donors and members who contribute their time, their talents, or their treasure.
Personalization is also ultimately a win for your organization as it contributes to improved member and donor engagement, improved event attendance and participation. And we know that that leads to membership retention increases and optimized fundraising efforts and outcomes. And personalization also strengthens organizational value and audience value for sponsors and partners. Crucially, it provides insight into where there is overlapping demand and needs and where there is the opportunity for you to allocate fewer resources. And of course, all of this has a positive impact on the revenue mix for your organization.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But why now? What is the time frame here? Why should you care? And well, now that the customer experience has this new standard, it's all super relevant. It's up to your organization to develop a plan today and act and respond accordingly. Personalization is increasingly part of that standard customer experience in this new and digital age. According to Adobe's 2024 Digital Trends Report, 71% of customers expect brand interactions to be tailored to their specific needs. How well you can personalize an experience tends to make or break a customer's impression of the value of the connection to your organization.
And it's not just any consumers. We're talking about the new lifeblood for your organizations, millennials and Gen Z. They're reshaping expectations for member-based organizations. According to an ASAE article, Bridging Generations in Associations, older members value broad professional development, while younger members demand specialized resources tailored to their needs, such as their subspecialty, geography, or job. They expect immediate practical tools they can apply right away. So having grown up in a digital world, younger members expect on-demand access to resources. They aren't interested in browsing catalogs or attending in-person events. Mm-hmm. They want information to be easily searchable and accessible across platforms. If it's inconvenient or irrelevant, they'll turn to other networks to meet their needs. So this adds a new urgency for your organization to activate personalization, as well as attract this needed attendee base. And don't you feel like we can all kind of relate to that in today's world where we're all constantly finding the things that we need on demand? We're ready at the click of a button to find those resources.
I feel like every different website now has recommendations and different things that I may have missed. And I know I feel connected when I get those types of communications. Mm-hmm. It seems like everyone else in the chat is feeling mostly the same way. Definitely some range here between yes to improve your personalization operations, some somewhat. And of course, it seems like others are just starting to get into this topic. And I think more broadly, as most consumers aren't satisfied with the level of personalized experience that they're actually getting on a day-to-day basis, actually just 26% of consumers describe their digital experience to date with a brand that they have as excellent. So, about half of the consumers surveyed tend to agree with this statement that the more brands know about them, the better service they can give. At the same time, Nearly 2/3 expressed frustration with the brands that actually knew a lot about them, but didn't take any of those preferences into account.
So nonprofits have a unique opportunity in 2025 to get personalization right, especially amidst this information overload. The 2024 Edelman Trust Barometer shows a 5-point increase in trust in nonprofits, making them the most ethical institutions, while trust in government, media, and businesses declines. This rise in trust is crucial for building strong donor relationships and improving retention. A new wave of members and donors is emerging, seeking credible, personalized experiences. And nonprofits can build trust by delivering tailored, coordinated experience that meets these demands.
Absolutely. And this is where we want to help. Achieving this level of personalization at scale has traditionally been really time-consuming and difficult for many organizations. You need to have the right tech in place to activate overall.
Organizations often rely on manual, standalone solutions to engage customers. And I don't like saying the word standalone because we at Cvent, we're all about consolidation. But organizations are relying on these standalone solutions to engage customers. And we're now entering this new era of personalization tools and tech that you have available. So associations and nonprofits can leverage integrations to have a customer journey map through various digital touchpoints, machine learning to process those large data sets, and generative AI to create tailored, high volume content with customized tone, imagery, and experiences. So these innovations enable better targeting and content creation for specific micro communities. To fully unlock their potential, marketers must strengthen their tech stack, focusing on data, decision-making, design, distribution, and measurement. This will lead to deeper customer insights and more effective long-term personalization strategies.
And so for every event professional on this webinar, why should we care? Why should personalization be so personal to you? Well, as I'm sure you know, and I'm sure we're hearing in the chat already, you're directly at the helm of the action. While personalization is a function that takes cohesion from the entire organization and your stack of technology to pull off really well, you are responsible for events and marketing, and it's likely that you're at the epicenter of executing on a really highly personalized approach here. Seems like everyone had agreed they're a part of this discussion.
So for your own personal growth, or your own professional growth rather, Cvent recognizes that this is a tactic you'll need to grow and leverage well, without necessarily the need to become a digital marketing or machine learning expert overnight, but being able to profile and segment your attendees, leverage the insights and data coming back from your campaigns and events in a way that benefits your entire organization. We're really seeing that this is how you can stand out as having a great impact within your organization and be seen as that strategic thinker.
Yeah. It's likely if we did another poll right now, most of us actually wouldn't feel entirely equipped for this new era. Now, Will, are you in your AI era yet?
I prefer to call it my deep machine learning era.
Machine learning.
Yes.
We are all learning what's next in this society, and with all these events, things are changing really rapidly. So let's get started. Let's dive a little deeper on these stages of personalization so you can understand where you and your organization's practices fit in and where you can look ahead.
All right. We're going to keep our poll open for each of these as we describe them. So let us know where you're at with each stage.
Stage 1, personalized communications. You know who you're reaching out to. Poll is open. We want to look through your thoughts. So what is this? This is basically the basics. Basic personalization in email communications and marketing. A lot of the times you know that you're doing this, but you might not be doing it that well. Perhaps this is just using first names or making sure you're not sending a register now email to groups of people that have already registered. But how is this being done? What does this look like on a day-to-day basis? Largely through email marketing tools, CRM integrations, maybe just in Outlook. There's a couple notable impacts. First and foremost, increased response rates. Personalization leads to higher engagement rates, open rates, click-through rates for emails. I know those "did you leave me in your cart" emails always get me to go back and click. And while this seems pretty basic, it can be underrated. Sending a member an email acknowledging key milestones or personal events, anniversaries, professional achievements can go a really long way and enforce that feeling of community and bolster that sense of stewardship.
It's interesting. It looks like we definitely have a lot of folks who are identifying with that basic stage, about 50% of the responses we've got so far. And then we do have other people identifying with the late stages. So let's jump into stage 2, which isn't typically lumped into personalized marketing, but it is an important facet of a personal experience. And it's personalized login experiences through SSO or single sign-on. And this really gives the sense of I'm known across the organization when I reach out. So we do have a few folks who are identifying with this stage, but really single sign-on plays a key role in creating a seamless experience, and it is the new gold standard. But how is it accomplished? Well, by integrating your CRM or AMS. And the benefits of that integration are ease of access, better data collection, and of course, an enhanced user experience. And this results in fewer abandoned registrations, the ability to obtain new and different information, and then convert interested members into bona fide attendees. And an example of this actually is an association that I was looking at recently, NHSA, which is in the early stages of implementing SSO for members to personalize their registration experience. So they were having a hard time assigning registration types to their attendees, although their AMS already had the data needed to determine which registration types attendees should receive, but it wasn't integrated in any way. And so they wanted to use their existing data in their AMS so that attendees didn't have to select their registration type manually from a dropdown, which was both clunky and oftentimes resulted in human error and then incorrect pricing for their members. So they first tried a contact level field that the planners were manually updating, and they used this field in a custom logic process during registration to assign registration types. But they still ran into issues with this method because the field needed to be updated manually. And of course, we all know membership status can change. So they decided to set up single sign-on for their member path so that members have to sign into registration from their membership portal in order to get that member pricing. And they only set this up about a month ago, which is why I said they're in the earlier stages of this. But they have already seen great results with a much more seamless experience for attendees. And their CIO has already provided feedback that this is so much more convenient.
I feel like I'm having those conversations more and more with my customers and my partners about that ease of use on both the planner side and the attendee side. So now we're talking stage 3. This is the most stage associations and nonprofits think of when they think of personalization. Let's call it audience segmentation for tailored experiences. We're launching another poll right now. We want to hear your thoughts. And what does this look like? First and foremost, segmenting your audience, registration types that Will was talking about, groups, pricing, topical appeal. And there's some different tools that can go into this. This is where you can leverage your event tech platform if it has robust marketing functionality for A and B testing emails, especially if it's integrated with your CRM or your association management system. A couple different benefits here include targeted invitations. Personalized event invitations can make attendees feel like the event was specifically for them. By tailoring invitations based on past involvement, interests, or past attendance, organizations can increase the likelihood that that attendee will actually convert and come to their event. There is an overwhelming amount of statistics out there that show even just a tailored message to the right group impacts membership retention or donor engagement super positively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I had seen a lot of folks indicating that they feel they're at this stage of segmenting in personalization. It's definitely something we're seeing come up a lot, and we have a lot of tools that are making that easier. So an interesting association example of this is NMSDC, which is using audience segments to create guest lists for specialty events. So pre-registration, they'll preload attendees on their invitation list into specific audience segments with limited session availability, so that each attendee then sees the options uniquely relevant to them during registration. And it makes the process feel more personal. It also saves the attendee time because they're only seeing those relevant sessions.
As we see many of our customers at this stage, but sometimes the segments can be out of date when we don't really know where to start to see some specific distinctions. Many make an attempt, but there are variances in how well organizations are able to actually execute and achieve this. Often this has to do with some of the challenges we'll discuss next, but let's see what our audience has to say. Seems like a lot of people are still at that basics phase or working into the personalized profile section.
All right, so let's talk about stage 4. This involves a transition from relying solely on user inputs to also incorporating user behaviors for segmentation and recommendations to create a one-to-one hyper-personalized approach. So how well are you leveraging user behaviors to be proactive in marketing current offerings? It looks like we don't have a lot of folks using this stage 4 right now. But the really cool thing is your users are already providing you with the roadmap needed to deliver the experiences they want. The challenge here lies in being able to see that data in relevant time and to act upon it. So the annual conference or annual feedback survey has been a gold standard for collecting updated information in the past, but now your users, members, donors are giving you touch points on a more frequent basis. And they're anticipating that your offerings will be taking into account how they're already engaging with your organization.
At Cvent, this is where we're looking to help associations and nonprofits address some of the new expectations by having a consolidated event technology platform, or also adding key integrations with your AMS, your CRM, or your other analytics tools. You have access to data points to map out your attendee journey, to understand their engagement behaviors through digital touchpoints or even RFID at in-person events, and then leverage generative AI to develop content, recommendations, and even networking suggestions tailored to all of this information. This is where we're starting to see large data sets of information, machine learning, and AI tools come into play. It's so much information to process manually. There's no way to operate at this stage without sophisticated technology tools.
Yeah, and I love the RFID call out. I have a customer who's currently working on implementing RFID at their event to track session attendance. And then they'll be awarding attendees digital badges based on the combinations of sessions that they attend. So another really cool way to personalize. All right, so we're going to keep it at a framework level for this webinar, but we do have another webinar on personalization and AI you can tune into if you're interested in understanding our product on a more granular level. And we'll go over later in the presentation about how you can reach out to us to talk about how our event platform can help you to map out your attendee journey and execute on personalized marketing experiences.
Looks like we are still seeing a variety of people at these different stages. So curious to see at this final stage, stage 5, where the impact can actually be seen across your organization. As a result of mapping out this attendee journey and all these different touch points we're getting throughout the year, what else can we do with this? If you have it, not only can you personalize the attendee experience, but you can then share it across your organization and use it to impact decisions like resource allocation, strategic event and content design, or identify even new segments that you didn't know about before that you can reach out with tailored offers like those digital badges. You really want to be using your event and marketing data in a way that empowers other departments, other stakeholder groups, and leaders to achieve your organization's broader goals. This is what elevates you as a strategic thinker.
Perfect. All right. And dare I say it, but this may even look like re-examining the playbook for your annual conference or other annual events. But that conference is an area that's often considered tried and true. So making major changes to it can seem risky. But if there are major changes in what your audience desires from your content and programming, now is the time to take advantage of what your data is telling you. And we do have a few customers who are at the point in their personalization operational maturity that are using their data to rethink those major events and conferences. And while we don't have time to dive deeply into those details today, we encourage you to come listen to their presentation on this pilot at Cvent Connect.
Yes, it's going to be important to see what we learn from our customers and user base at our own conference. So stay tuned for more information about that. So what are some of the challenges here? We've talked about the stages. We're talking in broad strokes about theoretically why this is really important, but not everyone is quite at that same stage, as you guys have totally pointed out in the polls here. In fact, there are quite a few common challenges when it comes to how to actually operationalize personal events in marketing. So let's get into it. Let's talk about some of the most common challenges for each of these different phases and how we can help you move forward. Of course, we still want to hear from you, so keep it going in the polls as it comes through. But first and foremost, let's call this the human challenges. Small teams or resource constraints. Many associations and nonprofits operate with small teams or even as one-person shops. Shout out to all the one-woman shows out there. This makes it difficult to allocate the necessary time and resources to personalize those communications, build detailed profiles, and then segment your audiences effectively. There's also a general lack of knowledge and training or time investment. To implement these AI-driven solutions like AI-based recommendations or predictive analytics requires a lot of specialized knowledge that many associations and nonprofits lack or don't have time to invest into, either financially or from a staffing perspective. There's also these lack of dedicated roles and ownership. In many cases, the roles responsible for communications and marketing and data analysis are not separate. It's one person doing it. So then it's hard to dive into what a deep personalization effort and impact could be.
Mm-hmm. And if we zoom out a little, sometimes personalization is also hindered by culture challenges.
Mm-hmm.
One cultural challenge we see is perceived complexity. Personalization can seem overwhelming or too complicated, especially when it involves integrating new technologies or changing established processes. So some organizations may be hesitant to invest time in learning how to leverage these tools, even if the long-term benefits are clear. And then we have concerns over data and privacy being an element of cultural resistance. There are concerns over compliance with regulations. We know associations and nonprofits need to navigate data privacy laws like GDPR or CCPA, and it's important that they ensure data is collected, stored, and used appropriately for personalization, which can be a complex process. I know when GDPR rolled out and I was working in an association, it was a very stressful time for everyone. There are also data sensitivity considerations. Nonprofits, particularly those that work with vulnerable populations, may face additional concerns about the ethical use of personal data for personalization, which can lead to hesitancy in collecting or using data for tailored marketing efforts.
There may also be an inability to act on these insights, right? Even if the insights are collected, organizations may struggle with how to turn them into actionable strategies. For example, knowing which donors are the most engaged with clear, certain events, but not having an actual way to use that data to tailor future outreach can be complicated. Then sharing the information and providing access across departments layers on its other roadblocks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say data is where we see associations and nonprofits struggle the most. They have a ton of data and are not sure how to make it all useful. I've definitely had countless conversations with customers who know they have all this data and don't know what to do with it. And in fact, associations and nonprofits are not alone in their data challenges. Respondents from all industries called this out, highlighting that how effective a practitioner was in personalization often correlated with the effectiveness of their organization's data systems.
Let's break it down a little further. Data challenges can look like fragmented data, where data is often stored in multiple different systems, your CRM, your email marketing platform, event management tools. This creates a lot of silos. These fragmented data sources make it difficult to get a unified, big picture view of your attendees, your members, or your donors, and then create accurate and comprehensive profiles. This could also look like inconsistent data collection from the platforms that don't connect well or don't gather data in a way that can be uniformly stored and then, of course, interpreted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we all know the struggle of inconsistent data. We all know the struggle of also outdated information. I think this is the bane of a membership-based organization's existence. Member or donor information can quickly become outdated, especially when contact preferences, interests, or other key data points aren't regularly updated. And that then leads to sending irrelevant or even outdated messages.
I'm guilty. I just changed my name and my address, so I'm part of the problem.
But you can hedge against this when you're incorporating data on behaviors. And sometimes your segments are also overly simplified. Associations and nonprofits can default to broad segmentation, just focusing on member versus non-member, and then they miss out on more granular segmentation that can improve personalization.
Yeah. And lastly, these tech stack challenges can result in limited or fragmented systems. Many associations and nonprofits are constrained by legacy systems or homegrown technology that don't have the ability to upgrade to this personalized stage or integrate AI or data analysis. Integration difficulties also result from these situations. Even if modern tools are in place, getting these tools to seamlessly integrate with each other, your CRM, your events management, your marketing automation, can be a real technical hurdle, leading to disjointed efforts. We also see a lack of reporting tools overall. Many nonprofits and associations lack the sophisticated reporting tools needed to analyze and interpret all of this data effectively. We've talked about information overload, which then it limits their ability to measure the success of personalization efforts or make informed decisions if they were ever able to deploy such new tech.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting now that we've gone through these, a lot of folks are struggling with all of these challenges. I was surprised that data challenges specifically is called out as quite low.
But I think everyone said all of the above, which makes sense.
Yeah. So if you feel like your organization has room for improvement in personalization, you're clearly in good company. And when I'm surveyed where associations were putting their technology investments in 2025, only 34% of the respondents listed AI tools for personalizing member experiences.
It was interesting to see that the poll results are all of the above, because I think that relates to this next topic, which is taking a unified approach, right? These challenges, these solutions don't exist in their own silos. So there's some general requirements for success, right? Personalization requires, consolidation of your tech stack, your data, your organizational department goals, and some human coordination, right? That's why it's all so hard. A seamless experience for a member or attendee data, and people who are all operating together with shared goals and then shared project plans. Your organization will need to find a way to view this audience behavior holistically so that you get a clear picture. And, these users interact across all of these various systems that we've discussed, your .org, your newsletters, your learning and engagement portals. We haven't even gotten into learning management or credits. And all of your events. To have this end-to-end view of a digital journey is super crucial for execution and analysis.
So for some of the human challenges, you've already started by taking the lead with self-education. But Cvent has resources. We are here to help you. Go ahead and fill out the survey at the end and let us know what you want to hear more on, whether you want to know more about single sign-on, how to use audience segmentation that carries over between events, maybe AI-powered session and networking recommendations, or set up engagement and event insights reporting. And another step you can take is by talking to your community too. We have a lot of resources in our Cvent community, and also we've talked a little bit about Cvent Connect, our user conference, which will be a great opportunity to connect with other users struggling with the same challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And using some of those community resources or coming to Cvent Connect is a great way to start building your case for change from within your own organization. When it comes to building this case for personalization and starting up your AI toolkit, senior leaders need to be looking at this as a top priority. And that takes a lot of championing on your part. You may be able to start presenting internally on where your biggest pain points are when it comes to engagement and where personalization could add value. You could also invite Cvent to present on what customer successes have been, as Will and I are talking about, and how you can leverage personalization through cohesive marketing and event experience. We also recommend getting to know your C-suite. Get to know your CIO, because many of the data and tech stack struggles that make personalization hard are things that they have a vested interest in improving internally as well. Digital transformation, happens across an organization, not just in one department, as I think we've emphasized throughout our conversation today. So let's work together to break down these silos and ensure events are not on an island.
It's important to create a single source of truth. Think about what data do you have and where does it all live? And you can think about this in terms of audience intelligence, your known versus unknown users. Your list may have a ton of unknown users waiting to become members or subscribers. And then you have demographic segments versus opt-in segments versus behavioral segments. And consider mapping out the engagement journey too, from prospect to member or donor. You have all of these engagements across your public website, your learning or member portals, newsletters, subscriptions, and other content, as well as advocacy activities, and then of course, in-person events and digital events. So you'll want to capture all of these interactions across each platform and feed the information into a usable data lake. Keep up with clean data hygiene. Work with your CIO to understand if you can consolidate and integrate data sets from the past few years as a starting place. And then prioritize data security. Check that your solution has regular security testing and meets compliance certifications, that it uses multi-factor authentication to prevent unauthorized access, and that it has a data recovery feature. And for more on this, check out a former webinar Cvent did earlier this month that we'll share in the chat later.
Yeah, good call out, Will. So connecting systems may not require a complete tech stack overhaul. Often it means finding how to integrate existing systems or understanding what components need to be added on. The goal here, again, is a unified event technology platform that gathers each touch point in the attendee journey. For example, integrating CRM and your AMS for event data that pulls back into attendee profiles might complete more behavioral insights. I see this as a key step in the first phase of personalization for many of the partners I work with. We've helped so many customers get past these challenges with our Integration 360 services, where you can help connect your event tech and your other platforms end to end. But let's remember, raw data is not the goal. You'll want dashboards and reports that cut to the chase for retention, engagement, and growth KPIs. This makes it easy to share out with your various teams. Cvent is also releasing updates to its dashboards and custom reporting this year. We're very excited about that. So subscribe to our product updates to learn more. And we can also integrate with other insight technologies and third parties out there like Association Analytics and Razor's Edge. And of course, our last group of solutions focuses on utilizing automation and AI to implement personalization at scale. Deriving insights and acting upon them requires a huge amount of work, and automation and AI make this feasible in the year 2025. When it comes to simplifying and marrying the audience data sets with the large realm of content and event offerings associations and nonprofits have, AI and automations are a dream team for making this possible. For example, content automation, assist in generating and tagging content, automating tasks like adding image fields, alt text for accessibility, and restructuring web pages or forms to prioritize the content preferred by the audience. Cvent also offers many content generation features within our own platform to build event communications and event app products. You can get copy refinement or a fresh new idea for a title or a session description without having to leave the event platform.
Yeah, I have a lot of customers who are very excited by our AI writing assistant,
Yes,
which can help you to quickly generate emails, generate session descriptions, event descriptions. It's a really fun generation tool.
Yes, that's a great call out and a great way to save time. And as we talked about, reducing that manual effort. Another example would be taxonomy management. AI can refine that content classification by generating new terms and improving metadata. Events Plus is our in-house solution that offers tagging for content libraries and making it really easy to have a recommended carousel of your next watch content.
So ultimately, your event tech should be helping you to execute on a personalized attendee experience end-to-end with email campaigns, dynamic resource recommendations, event app push notifications, and customized user dashboards that reflect the information your organization needs to make strategic decisions. And we recognize it's not just one feature or one product that helps you bring personalization to life. And that's why we wanted to present the wide landscape of how to think through your personalization operations and all of the facets where Cvent can help.
So as we open up the floor to your questions and comments, I already see some coming through. Just a friendly reminder here to have some patience. Most organizations are truly just starting to figure out how to personalize in a sophisticated and cohesive way, and it requires a ton of internal coordination. We've covered a lot of ground, but know that these pain points won't all be resolved today, and that is okay. Let's get into some of the Q&A.
Yeah, so we're going to open Q&A here in just a moment. So go ahead and share or upvote your questions if there are any that you like the look of. through the feature that you have on the right-hand side of the screen. And while you're entering your questions, we'll cover a few additional resources available to you. You can access all of these links from downloading the slides in the Resources tab on your screen.
If you want to explore personalization more, we have 2 reports that you can read or show your team, or other webinars and podcasts that we've produced and some of the different topics that we've touched on today. How to incorporate AI for personalization, how to ensure data security, and how to leverage your Attendee Hub event app for a more personalized event experience.
And if you're looking to network with other event professionals in your industry and collaborate on how they're tackling personalization, we have got you covered. Exclusively for our Cvent customers in the DC area, we have an in-person meetup coming up on April 17th. We encourage you to register for this new event. It's intended to bring association and nonprofit event professionals together during a time when many things are uncertain, and we want to listen and help. Jesse and I will both be there.
We'll be there
in person or here in our HQ. And additionally, you can chat with colleagues by joining the Cvent Community Association and Nonprofit User Group online. So again, that's online in the Cvent community. We do have a specific association nonprofit user group where we host quarterly virtual meetups, as well as kind of the ongoing threads and discussions you can join.
Yeah. Thanks, Will. Definitely want everyone to come visit our office in person if you're local to the DMV. But of course, we also have our annual user conference, Cvent Connect, coming up again this June. We always have a large in-person showing from our association and nonprofit industry community. And this year, we've added to your experience on site with industry-specific breakout sessions, hands-on discussions, community forums, like we're building a robust sponsorship program, building an events program on a budget, creative sourcing for unique venues, and of course, the session we mentioned earlier, a presentation from a global member-based organization on their digital transformation pilot that's allowing them to execute highly on personalized event experiences for their audience. This year's program is a don't miss. We hope to see everyone in their cowboy hats in San Antonio.
And lastly, maybe you're thinking you want to talk to someone here at Cvent to understand more about what Cvent's event platform can do for your personalization goals. So you can provide feedback via the survey on the left or on the right, and you can request a conversation and demo with the pop-up. And a fun fact, for each demo appointment attendee receives an Amazon gift card worth $100 US just for attending. So pressure's off for those who want to learn more. And we thank you for your valuable time. And of course, we invite you to connect with us both on LinkedIn too. Now let's jump into some questions.
All right, let's get serious. Let's see what everyone is saying. You mentioned tech stack cohesion as being a critical component for personalization. Can you speak to more common integrations and what's possible for custom integrations for associations and nonprofits? Will, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can take us away. So we do have some built-out integrations. The most commonly used out-of-the-box integrations would be Salesforce, Marketo for communications and attendee management. But a lot of folks are using more custom CRMs and they want to build out a custom integration. So we do have an open REST API license that you can use to connect your Cvent instance with your CRM, with your AMS. And if you don't have in-house developers who can build out that custom integration for you, we do have Integration 360 services. We also have partners who we recommend who specifically work with associations and nonprofits to integrate those data systems. So we can jump into that, single sign-on stage that we had talked about earlier.
Yeah, I'll add one of our partners, AMS Geek, is incredible. They do this and have been for years. Real incredible partners to help you with the strategy. If you're picking an AMS, if you have a legacy system and you're migrating, they help a lot of our customers integrate with the Cvent platform. I think the other piece that's worth mentioning is some of the middleware out there. So if we don't have any in-house developers and we prefer to do something a little bit more simplistic, Zapier is another one. I'm hearing a lot from my customers who want to take this on in-house, but still have like a one-way flow of data between their systems.
Yeah, we do. We have an out-of-the-box IMS integration, but I also have folks who've built something more custom too. And we do have an app marketplace, an integration app marketplace that you can explore online to kind of look at those out-of-the-box integrations we have as well.
Yeah, great call out. Let's see. My organization produces events for a sensitive population. Thank you for the hard work that you're doing. What advice would you have for communications to feel personal but not intrusive or overly targeted?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are so many ways that we can segment out audiences. And maybe there's kind of a special interest group that you have, or different topics that your attendees participate in. I know that, when I was working in an association, we had a lot of subspecialty interest groups, and that would be a great way to target communications. Any sort of question that you might want to throw into the registration process too. Maybe it doesn't have to be even professionally speaking, it could be something more of a personal interest that you could use too.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think it's also important. I feel like we talked a lot today about bigger events, marquee events, annual conferences, but small, intimate community gatherings can still feel personal, right? Inviting people, as you mentioned, to topic-based forums, dinner parties, small-scale webinars, pop-up advocacy events that are happening in your area. That's still personalized, right? We're highlighting those commonalities, either demographic or interest area. It doesn't have to be these broad-scale communications. These can still be thoughtful, targeted communications at a more individual level.
Ooh, another one that I feel like associations use a lot is kind of how long someone's been a member.
Ooh.
So if you have like first-time members or prospective members, that would be a great group that's not focusing on too personal information, but still gives someone that personalized sense, versus maybe you have members who have been around for 20 plus years and you want to have a special event or communications for those folks.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Let's see a couple other questions come in. You keep referencing to activate well on personalization, it requires an organizational approach. So true. Are there services within Cvent who can help align the departments at my organization for coordinated effort? I can start. One of the groups that we have developed within the past 3 or 4 years here at Cvent is called Event Program Design. So they think really big picture about your event strategy. And one of the things they specialize in is stakeholder management. So we've talked about manual lift, we've talked about getting to know your C-suite. What they do is really help build a playbook and a toolkit to quantify the impact of some of these changes, to dig a little deeper and start to understand your business, how your organization is structured, how many different departments touch your events program, how can we consolidate this, and then how can we understand the actual time impact of making some system changes. So I would definitely say, if you have any questions, if you have a current Cvent representative, definitely request to get in touch with the event program design team. They're an incredible resource.
Yeah, I love hearing that. I have a few customers who have worked with our event program design team, and I love jumping on, we'll have kind of consultation calls with them as part of that process. And I love jumping on the calls and seeing the wheels turning of kind of multiple stakeholders within an organization all starting to collaborate and think together about, okay, here are the tools we now have available through Cvent, and here's how our other customers have used them, but how do we specifically want to kind of formulate our own event program in a way that's being cognizant of all of the data that we're collecting in, and then use that for improving your events.
Yeah, I think another approach when we talk about strategies and services at Cvent is also, we said all these things won't be solved in one day. This event program design team, and I think your Cvent account team overall, is willing to work with you on that incremental growth perspective, a walk, a crawl, a run. What can we bite off this year? What's within our strategic plan or our budget this year? What's our 5-year plan, and what's that dream state? So knowing that we can start to think through these problems today, but we can start to solve them over the next few years.
All right. So this next question, you both work directly with customers all day. Can you speak more on how you've been helping customers map out their attendee journey and leverage those insights better? Let's see. So I always start my conversations by addressing organizational goals, and if there is maybe one specific event that the customer is focusing on, thinking about those goals and thinking about, from the planning perspective, why are we running this event? But then from the attendee perspective, because this is really where it plays into personalization, why are attendees coming to my events? Is it more of an education-based event, or is it more of a networking-focused event? And from there, starting to think about what tools we have available and how we can leverage those.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm starting broad and then working narrow. I think I'll add, thinking through not only a specific events attendee journey, but your total events program. So we talked about the different touch points that we're interacting with our constituencies over the course of the year, seeing this more broadly, just outside of an annual conference, into some of those smaller meetings, making sure if you have learning and training and certifications, those get brought into a part of the greater conversation, so that we're understanding people who get brought in at a community event. Are they becoming members? Are they coming to our annual conference? Do they get invited to that first time meetup? And then how are we stewarding them throughout that life cycle the next year? So I think broadening it with your goals and then making sure we work together to get a really broad picture of all of the different programs that are happening at your organization.
Yeah, I'm putting yourself into the attendees' shoes too. And I like how you called out that we want to be kind of guiding them through the journey from registration to event. And do we have some content they can maybe be interacting with between registration or between registering for the event online and actually attending the event in person? Maybe we can leverage tools to engage them in that way. Really kind of guiding them through the process. I liked that, and the empathy of putting yourself in your attendees' shoes.
Yes. We also have some questions here about webinars. I think when we talk about that total events program, webinars should definitely be a part of it. I know Will and I were both here, through pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, but even now with a state of uncertainty and a lot of conversations happening that are also changing really quickly, a lot of my nonprofit and association customers are being asked by their constituent groups to host more webinars. So if that's happening in a different department, maybe now is time to bring them in up as a part of the conversation.
I love that. Oh, yeah.
Speaking about those webinars, the question is, my organization offers both webinars and workshops in both English and Spanish, but we find ourselves having a high registration number but low attendee number. I just got an email about this today, actually. How can we get these number of registrants to match the number of attendees?
I'm very curious what the participation rate is, because we do find for webinars and for free events especially, it's kind of a low. It's very easy for an attendee to decide that they don't want to join at the last minute, but maybe by promoting, if you've recorded the content, making sure that attendees who decided they couldn't actually join at that time, they still have access to the content, and then reporting on that too, to see what on-demand views and what on-demand engagement you're getting.
Yeah, I think you've seen us being a part of our program today. We offer gift cards, we do offer incentives. We want people to take the time and take our surveys, and we do feel the return on the investment when we are, further incentivizing participation. I'm seeing a couple other things. I'm seeing, people reach out with a personal note or personal impact to kind of drive that participation. Hi, I saw that you registered. I can't wait to meet you. I can't wait to see you in person. The other impact, and I think we saw this post-pandemic, was shifting from a free to a paid model. Perhaps that gets you less attendees, but it gets you more quality attendees who are going to be engaged, who are going to commit to your organization's mission, the content. And since they did invest in that time and financially, they're more likely to attend.
It's a tricky
balance.
Sell
it's a balance
to make someone pay for a webinar. So I definitely see both sides of the coin there.
Yes.
And then I feel like one other thing I've seen too is if you're running a webinar series, then maybe having one central hub or one central place where you're hosting all of those webinars, so that attendees start to get familiar with that login process. It doesn't feel, even if it's a super easy, just one-click join from the email, sometimes that will put attendees off compared to if you have that one hub that they're used to logging into for their webinars and they've experienced it before, then they're going to be more likely to join again in the future.
Yeah, I think we've played around with the time frame too, even at our annual conference, of how long should some of these sessions be. And so maybe that's a good internal conversation to have with your marketing and your content team. What if we ran a 30-minute webinar instead of 45 minutes? What would that look like? Things that you can start to experiment with, especially in the virtual space, to make things a little snappier and to see if that changes on some of the conversion rates.
And I think the great thing about webinars too is because they are kind of short and sweet, it's a really easy opportunity for you to experiment, try different things out, see what's working best for you, and see which strategies are engaging more of your attendees.
Yes. Looks like we have our last question here. Can you elaborate on some of the product features where I can start to take advantage of personalization with registration, attendee hub, and on-site solutions? There may be good options to personalize that I'm not aware of yet as a Cvent customer. Thank you for this question.
Yeah, so obviously broad scope, we have things like registration paths for customized registration experiences, and then widget visibility logic. So, showing specific content or specific questions on the registration process, depending on the criteria that an attendee might meet. But some of the newer things that have come out that you may not be taking advantage of already are audience segments. We talked a lot about audience segmentation, and we do have a feature that will allow you to build out dynamic segments. You can set rules saying, if these contact fields meet these criteria, or if the registration type meets these criteria, based on a combination of rules, which segment each attendee should end up in. And then you can target your session visibility, your push notifications, page visibility as well, and emails, all through audience segments.
Yeah, these definitely have evolved based on feedback from our marketers. So if there's any marketers out there utilizing audience segments for your events, we welcome your feedback. We know that this is a huge priority for our platform and for our organization and our constituents. So we definitely want to hear from you about how you're utilizing these in the field.
Yeah, one other super easy tool to leverage, which actually plays into the later stages of personalization we talked about. So there's more complex AI-powered stages of personalization, would be session recommendations and networking recommendations. These are features you can turn on for your event app, for your attendee hub with one click, and it will use the data that your attendees are already generating for you to provide recommendations on how else they might want to engage in the event.
Yeah, great. A great thing to end on. I know if we didn't get to your question, please do reach out to us personally, reach out to your Cvent account team. We'll get you all the resources you need. Another plug to join us at Cvent Connect for all of this content, I think is going to be super relevant and topical. The other option would be to set up a conversation with somebody from your Cvent representative or from your Cvent account team to think more strategically about this.
Perfect. Yep, and today we definitely covered a lot at a high level. So thank you for participating with us to see where your organization and practices fall in the evolution of personalization. We do encourage you to partner with us here at Cvent and with your Cvent user community as you pursue developing that personalization toolkit.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. We so appreciated hearing from you and learning from you today. This is the end of our webinar, and if you have any other questions, please reach out to us at webinars@cvent.com. Thank you. Have a great day.
Stop talking, I drown in the sound of you.